Hi there, and welcome to Principal Shorts, the podcast for principals who have 7.5 minutes for lunch and no time to eat it before 2 p.m. My name's Stan Baker. I'm a retired educator from Ontario who worked in restorative practices and actually continues to work in restorative practices with school boards, with principals, with teachers, with support staff. In this podcast, we focus on a principal problem of practice and one or two things that you can do to practically make your day a little easier. Here's Paula, our AI voice, to tell you a little more about what we do.
You put the words right in my mouth, Stan. I'm Paula. Restorative Resolutions coaches principals and teachers as they navigate difficult conversations with parents, make things right, and keep the focus on student learning. The principal's problem of practice is how can principals intentionally create opportunities for staff to feel heard, valued, and involved?
This past year, we had an opportunity to work with a school district in Ontario, and our guests this episode are Megan Bourgeois, principal, and Don Mann, vice principal, both from the Northwest Catholic District School Board. I talked with both of them shortly after school ended in June. Rather than waiting for problems to arise, Megan and Don proactively created structured opportunities for staff to share successes and challenges, needs, and ideas. And they were both so enthusiastic about this. I got to tell you that this podcast is actually a little longer than the shorts usually are. What have you noticed that the impact has been on you in terms of how you're dealing with others?
I think for me personally, it's been such a great way for us to really frame how we support students specifically, but also how we're supporting adults. I think Don and I really taken to utilizing the questions and looking at the manual in almost every situation that we have. We really root ourselves back to the questions and root ourselves back to the practice because it is something that we both intrinsically believe in. And I think we've seen immense success and it's been great. I think it's been so great for us to just, like I said, guide and focus our conversations. It falls completely in line with our progressive discipline policy. So it is such a perfect way for us to really frame the questions, use it in a supportive fashion. We used it within the last week of school with students. So that's been super positive. And I think the work now, because we had started the original work, now that it's trickling into staff, is reminding the staff to utilize those questions. So reminding them in those potential playground interactions with students when they're trying to, before sending it to us, what does that look like on the playground and how do you mitigate some of those factors from even potentially getting here?
And I think too, because Megan and I truly value relationships, and I feel like this mindset and way allows for relationships to build even through those difficult, hard conversations. And one thing that I know I've done personally is when a staff member or student comes to us with a problem, sometimes I feel like they come to us with so much and we have to then narrow in what they actually need help with. So we then talk about what are your barriers? So what barriers would you like me to help you with? What do you recognize as being a barrier? And just being very careful and aware of our words when we're speaking as well. And also giving time to listen. And that's something that Megan and we've done a few times is a listening tour where staff just come in and they sit with us and they just talk. And we'll write some notes just to allow us to remember some of the key points, but it's not for conversation. It's just for us to listen, just to navigate as to where there could be struggles, things that are happening that we may not be aware of, what we could potentially improve. And with our EAs, what we did this year, because of this is we had them jot down some of the barriers that they're dealing with and we just had them put them on stickies and I've saved them. So then hopefully during the time that Megan and I are together, we can work through all of those. And there may be things that we can't change, but there may be a handful of things that we can. And I think as humans, it's important to see that it's not just nonsense and that there is an action plan and that there is something that does come from these moments. So for us, It's becoming practice now. We might not follow it to a T exactly as to how it's been
What?
done,
What?
but it's become very comfortable.
Yes.
And I think
That's amazing. So tell me about this listening tour. I love the idea. Like, is there a question that you ask, or how do you set that up?
when we did it originally, we did it at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
So we wanted to hear where, and we only did it with staff. We didn't do it with students and mainly teachers,
Yeah.
but we could definitely open it up to other staff as well. Just what are some things that they think are going really well, and what are some things that we need to know about? Yeah.
And so we didn't really frame it in the sense like we gave them some points to think about. So what are some things that are going really well? What are your needs? What are some challenges? And what is something positive that you'd like to share? And so we just framed it that way. We invited them to just pop in when they felt comfortable to pop in. And like Dawn said, it's hard for me to not speak, but it was really good to just listen. And it was really good to just jot some things down because as we were coming together as a team, they were dealing with change and a lot of change and frequent change in the administration that we knew that two schools were coming together from 2019, then COVID, then a plethora of administration that was in and out to where we felt that we're going to be here. We're going to stick it out for the long run. We're going to be a team together. We need to hear them so that their voices are heard, so that we can implement change, and so that we can just lead in a better way.
And so, how are you planning to use it again? Are you planning to have another listening
Yes. Yeah.
listening tour? I love that. I love it.
So this is we're going into our fourth year together as a team. What we want is for our staff to be able to have those hard conversations too without feeling that it's negative. So opening up those doors and having that moment at the beginning of the year, especially, but then having more moments throughout the year. But then also, if something just comes up, having them feel that it's okay to come in and just talk with us.
And I think it's lent itself to those other moments. So we initially had started with the listening tour. And then from that, we've then said to teachers, like, hey, here's the supervision schedule. If you see something that's amiss, please bring it to us. Or, hey, here's your timetable. If you think something could be done better, please bring your suggestions to us. We're open to hearing. And I think having had the listening tour, then having those conversations, allowing them to have their voices heard, that it wasn't just a here's your paper, now you're all done. It's a thou shalt. It's a conversation. Teachers have started coming in and they started feeling comfortable presenting their thoughts and ideas because it's not punitive. It's, hey, we're a team. We have to work together to make your day better, the students' day better, which then in turn makes our day better. So we've seen that trickle effect, I think, with opening that door and then allowing their voices to be heard, which I think, having been working for this board for 18 years, has not always been the case. Teaching's getting harder. We just want it to be okay and comfortable for them too.
And I think it's not going to fit with everyone, and that's okay too. Even if we, let's say, hit 70% of the staff right now and they've bought into this and they acknowledge that we are trying, and there are things that we can't. There are some things that are just, they are the way they are, and that's okay.
Now, do you ever then, let's say 70% of the staff show up for the listening tour over the course of a week or however long you do this? Do you ever go to the other 30% and say, hey, didn't see you at the listening tour. Do you have anything to say? Or not? Or just leave it?
No, we haven't. And that's something that we could do because
Absolutely.
there are some staff members that you're just never going to
Hear from.
Yeah,
Or,
and I think for some of those teachers, it will take time. But I feel like the biggest thing that I've learned being in the role that I'm in now is having that connection. So even if with a teacher that hasn't truly bought into this, but is open to communication, and if there's a problem and they are not happy with, let's say, the results of the consequence, you can turn it and just say, so tell me more. How would you have handled this? What would you have done? And then provide some education, because I think sometimes people think they know and they don't know. And they don't know everything that has to happen for things to to happen. So I think going back and talking to the 30% is a really good idea, because I do feel overall most of our staff, it may not be for those moments, come in and talk to us.
When we initially started the listening tour, it wasn't always positively received from our supervisors either. They were, whoa, wait a minute. You're just listening to people? Why? Why are you doing that? And it was, we're acquainting ourselves with them. We're trying to get, it didn't mean, and I think because they sit in different seats than we do, but I think it's never intended to be like, oh, we're just going to do everything that they say and we're going to just kowtow to what they're, it's really just hearing people, and it's really just understanding.
And I think that this listening tour idea, because it's basically the theme of what we talked about, listening to understand, not to respond, for the whole year. Like I could see that being the listening tour topic of the week, or the listening tour time of the staff meeting, and that you have the opportunity to shape the conversation. So now as leaders, you're framing the listening that you want to do to something fairly specific. I think it's part of what you're already doing, but I just see all kinds of potential. By carefully choosing their words and asking reflective questions and avoiding immediate solutions, Megan and Dawn have created a culture where difficult conversations strengthen relationships instead of damaging them. So here's practice number 1. Set up a listening tour on a low-risk topic. We want to hear your thoughts this week on topic A. So stop by the office and let us know what's working with this and what's not working with this.
It's Paula again. Here's practice number 2. Try a listening tour idea in a staff meeting for a portion of the time you are meeting. As trust grows, staff become increasingly comfortable offering suggestions, solving problems collaboratively, and contributing ideas about supervision, scheduling, and school improvement.
Want to find out a little bit more about the listening tour? Why don't you send me an email to stan@restorative.ca and we can have a conversation. And don't forget to take that 7.5 minutes for lunch because you deserve it.